some horrific myths, the integration into the Russophobic camp. In Moldova itself, the step has already been called a blow not to Russia but to the Republic itself, and, quote, an attempt to divert citizens' attention from real problems, unquote. And this all has been demonstrated on several other examples. And the situation in socioeconomic sphere is degrading. I would like to cite the examples in contrast to Moldovan authorities. Since the beginning of this year, the country's external debt has grown to $11.4 billion. In January-August, the export of goods decreased by 2.5% and imports increased by 18.3% compared to the same period in 2024. The new government of Moldova decided to start its work not by introducing solutions that could have alleviated the condition of economy of Moldova and the quality of life of their own people, but by closing the center of culture and science. The decision also caused regret among ordinary Moldovans, but no one is going to listen to them in Moldova. Thank you very much for your question. And you have already answered to my second question. That is why I'm not going to ask it. Thank you very much. RT, are you with us? Good afternoon. We have 3 questions today, if I may. My first question. In his interview, Alexander Vučić, the president of Serbia, suggested that the whole amount of munitions and weapons should be sold to the European Union. When answering to the question whether they can be sold to Ukraine, he answered that they can be sent to any means and to any objectives. You know, when I read all those interviews given by Alexander Vučić, a question occurs to me whether there is only one president, because I have an impression that those are interviews given by different people. We hear one statement when he is in Moscow, we hear completely different statements when he gives some interviews in some other points of the world, and I now mention only the public sphere. Perhaps mass media distorted some facts. Then the press service of Alexander Vučić should have done some comments and clarifications whether everything has been quoted in a correct and appropriate manner. Honestly, on a repeated basis, including at the top level, we received reassurances that the export of Serbian munitions is under strict control, that these products are not going to be sent to Ukraine, so that Kiev cannot use it against our military. Let me just remind you what kind of military men those are. They are the members of the armed forces that have repeatedly come to rescue, historically and in modern times, to the friendly Serbian people. I refuse even to discuss not only the possibility, but the whole subject that Russian soldiers, that the Russian military, who historically gave their soul, their heart, in every meaning of this word, sacrificing their lives or pledging love and loyalty to the Serbian brothers, would ever be killed by Serbian munitions or by Serbian weapons. and that this could ever happen by accident. But deliberately. I refuse even to think about this. I'm convinced that this should never happen. We proceed from the assumption that Belgrade will strictly adhere to the promises it made. There is a wording, I do not know how you will translate it into Serbian, the promises they gave us. I am not going to use this this word us. These promises were not given to concrete people, to concrete state. These promises were given by a sovereign state elected by people. They were not addressed to someone individually. It was not targeted. It was declared as a position of a legitimately elected president who expresses the will of his people. Thank you very much. My second question. The new government of Japan is toughening its rhetoric against Russia and the DPRK while forgetting its own crimes during the Second World War, in particular the massacre of Korean residents of the village of Moldova on Sakhalin by Japanese militarists in August 1945. What do you think about this? I'm shocked every time, at every occasion, that Russian-Japanese relations, which we used to say, the problems, the agenda, I would say, emerging between Russia and Japan is asked to be commented on not by Japanese media but by some other media, and there are dozens of them with accreditation in Moscow. I have only one question. What are they doing on the territory of Russia? If Russian and Japanese relations are the matter of interest by Russian journalists or by some journalists who are connected with the Balkan affairs, American journalists, no matter who, but not Japanese journalists. We have repeatedly called on official Tokyo to abandon attempts to silence the inhuman pages of its own history and to recognize the results of the Second World War in full. We regularly emphasize that Japan's revanchist policy hurts the feelings of the peoples of neighboring countries who suffered from its barbaric expansionist campaign in the first half of the 20th century. Against this backdrop, the constant speculation of the Japanese side about some atrocities of the Red Army during the landing operations on Sakhalin and the southern Kurils, as well as accusations of cruelty in the actions of the Soviet government against Japanese citizens living there, are surprising. Tokyo, even after its surrender, did not stop committing crimes that have no statute of limitations. In this regard, we intend to continue our efforts to identify the historical truth on this topic. Since 2021, the Russian side has been systematically working to declassify documents containing information about the bloody massacre by the Japanese of the Korean residents of the village of Moldova on Sakhalin, now the village of Pozharska. Although discrimination and violence against ethnic Koreans in the territory of what was then part of the Japanese Empire, the southern part of Sakhalin Island, were regularly recorded. The massacre, this is the word for it, in August 1945 was the apogee. Even then, during the atrocities committed, including by former servicemen of the Imperial Army of Japan, 27 Korean residents were brutally murdered under the pretext